There are a few ways to start making more money as a video editor. One of the most effective ones is to start working with clients who actually have money. Imagine you are editing for a YouTuber with 100,000 subscribers. They make around 5 grand a month from their channel. No matter how good your edits are, they're probably not paying you more than 500 bucks a month. Now picture this, you start working with a startup. Not just any startup, a venture-backed one. They just raised $25 million. Their marketing budget? 2 million. These guys can pay you $2,000 for a single short video, and they won't even blink. But there's a catch. These companies, they want a different look. They want their videos to look clean, professional, and expensive. So forget the deep glow, ditch the chromatic aberration, and delete that bad TV plugin. It's time to learn the big boy stuff. And today, we're starting with text animations, the kind that look professional, clean, and expensive, just like Apple does. So as you have seen from the preview, we'll animate to the sound cues in the music. Here you can see that if we expand the audio tab here and we check the waveform, we can see the peaks. And we'll animate to these peaks in the music track, in the song. So we will not use any voiceover today, we will just utilize the sound cues or beats in the music track to animate to them. So to prepare your animation, what you can do, you can just take your script and lay it out so that the changes each line of text correspond with the beat of the music. So as you can see, my text here is in red color. Let me explain why I did that. Here's my original composition I made to prepare for this lesson, and as you can see, this red text serves as templates for the actual text we'll animate. Why we do that? It's very simple, because we need to preserve the correct gaps between letters, between words. So these red letters will just serve as targets for our animated text. And you can see that I have created these red lines for every line I animated. So for example, we have one here. You see the words slide right into the positions determined by this red text. Same here. You will see that words will end up exactly where they need to be. And this is very important, because if you mess up the distances between words, this will make your video look very unprofessional. And in terms of design, it will just look wrong. So let's see how our first scene is done. So as you can see, I have a bunch of layers for this phrase. This isn't just text, right? And as you can see, I have created a part of a word, or just for one letter, like this. For words just and text, I have created layers for each letter of the word, so I can animate them individually, like here, for example. So let's just do that again in our new composition. So this isn't just text. So to do that, we just need to duplicate this layer, the red one, make it black, and now we delete everything except this, and we need to zoom real closely and see that it perfectly matches the red layer. And now we just Command D and we write here is, like this, duplicate that, and see, match it super closely to the red one. We need to create, like I said, a layer for each letter of the word just. Here it matched perfectly. So you can try to aim for the center of this letter, and sometimes it just matches perfectly. And now T, like this. And of course the dot or the period. Alright, so let's save the project, and now let's start animating. So the first word, this, is animated like this in the original. So we create a keyframe for position, we drag it like 7 frames forward, we create one more keyframe, and we do this. So it slides in from the left. But of course this now it looks not very good, so we need to easy ease the keyframe. So we highlight it, I press W because it's the hotkey for easy ease, and now we adjust the keyframe shape so that it looks like this. And now it slides in really fast in the beginning, and it slows down in the end. Now let's check our reference. So there isn't, these two parts of the word isn't, they slide from the bottom. Let's create keyframes, 2 more keyframes. Now let's move them down like this, easy ease and shape. Now what we need to do, we need to press Command Shift D to slice the layers, delete the beginnings, and move the second part of the word a bit to the front. So it looks something like this. All right, looks great. Let's start animating the next word, which is just. For just, we have it pops from above, from the top. So just, you can either slice them, but we can also move them like this. Here we will create the same keyframes for each layer. So no need to separate them, just highlight them like this, easy ease. If you see this flat graph, it means that we haven't moved them. So we need to move them like this to the top a bit. Now, again, highlight the keyframes and now adjust the shape. As you can see, I use mostly this shape everywhere. So I like how it looks because this looks very smooth. And I suggest that you use the same shape. What we can do to make it a bit more popping is we can just move each layer 1 frame to the forward, so it will appear like this. And now for text, what we had is, you see the letter came from below, this from top, this as well from below, and this from the right. Let's just replicate that. And it's important that the word text appears when we hear the click in the music track. So the click is this peak, right? The peaks are very small now because I made the music very quiet, so that it doesn't overpower my voice. But this is the peak we need to time the animation to. So let's move it like this. Now let's create position keyframes for each. Let's move them 7 frames or so to the front. And now let's move this one down, move this one up, this one down as well, like this. And let's move this one to the right a little bit. And as for the period, what I had, let's check. So it flew somewhere from the right side, and I also animated scale for it. So you see it's a bit bigger in the beginning, and then the scale becomes 100%. So let's do the same thing. So let's just adjust the position like this, and let's adjust the scale to 135%. Press U so that we see both keyframes, both parameters animated. Highlight all the keyframes, easy ease. And now just press this button so you fit all the graphs you see, within this screen. And now our favorite keyframe shape, which is this shape, right? Looks like this. When we hear the click, the animation happens and it looks very cool. So next we have a transition to the next phrase, which is, this is text with taste, right? So here I had an interesting effect where you can see that we reuse some parts of some words for the next phrase. So as you can see, we reused this is, because we have in the first phrase this isn't, and then in the second phrase it says this is. So we just get rid of this nt, we slide this is to the left so it occupies the correct position like this. This is our red template. Nt just blurs out and slides to the top. The word just becomes with, so we reuse the T letter, and text just jumps from this part of the sentence to the middle. And the period, it just also jumps to the correct position. It's very important that the letters don't collide, right? As you can see, if I slide the animation here on the timeline, there are no collisions. So the letters or the words don't overlay each other. It's very important. If they do, it will look a bit messy, so try to avoid that. So see that the layers are a bit short here, so we can just highlight all the layers and just prolong them like this. And now we need to animate this is. Let's show our template, and remember it needs to be pixel perfect so that everything looks neat. Let's check what kind of keyframe shape we had in the original one. So let's just check the graphs, and you can see that I had this graph shape, the peak in the middle. So let's just replicate that so that it looks something like this. Then we need to, so as this motion starts happening, we also need to get rid of this NT. So let's create a keyframe for position. Let's create one more here. Its final position should be somewhere here. I think the shape should be maybe like this. So let's also create the opacity, and let's also add fastbox blur effect to it. So here it should be 0 on the first keyframe, and here it should be 5, and the opacity should be 0. Let's easy ease all the keyframes, and let's just readjust the shapes of the keyframes so that all the keyframes look the same. If it looks right, if it looks good to you, you can just leave it as it is. I think it looks good enough, as if it, dissolves like smoke or a fog or steam. This is the effect I wanted to achieve, but maybe the blur radius needs to be a bit more, like 15 probably. So it's more smoky, like this. And you can see that the majority of the motion happens on the first frame. So it's almost instantly transparent. All right, so next we need to transition the word just into the word with. Let's create a new null object, which we will call just with controller, like this. And let's put it above these layers which represent the just word. So now what we need to do, we need to highlight these 4 layers, and we need to parent them like this to this controller. Now let's create 2 position keyframes, and let's put it so that it overlays this red template. Let's easy ease them, and let's choose this shape. So now it moves in place in the correct spot. And now we need to get rid of the first 3 letters like this. So again, need to create position keyframes for them. So J needs to go first, then U, then S, right? So do it like this. Now like this. The same shape. And now we need to offset the keyframes by a couple of frames so that they drop, in 1 by 1, let's say. You see, it's a really cool effect. So we have 2 controllers for this word. See, it slides to the left, and also each letter slides down individually. But I think they need to disappear a bit earlier while the motion is still active, because now, they almost stop, and only after that they start disappearing. So probably 1, 2, 3, 4 frames after the keyframe, maybe it will give us the desired effect. Let's check. Maybe even like 2 frames, maybe like this. 1, 2, 1, 2. Or even 1. Let's check how it looks. No, 2 looks better. So let's leave 2 frames here. And now we need to create this with word, right? We already have 1 letter, T, and now we need to create W, I, and H. So let's create a text layer, and let's just move it so that it's, again, pixel perfect, as much as our resolution allows us to, to do that. But I assure you that this is enough accuracy. We don't need to be more accurate than that. We need to introduce these 3 letters from above. So here we can create keyframes for each one of them, move them up like this. Again, the shape, our preferred shape. And here we as well offset them by 2 keyframes. And let's check how it looks without the template. And not to spoil the impression, we need to enable the motion blur. Forget this text now, it interferes a bit, but I think it looks very, very cool. Now we need to animate these letters, so they fly and appear here in place of these red letters. So let's go to our text layers, these ones, and now we need to create a bunch of keyframes here again, and let's animate them one by one. So first letter T, again, we need it pixel perfect as much as we can. Then, so what we need to do next is we need to do a long press of this button, and we need to choose this option, convert vertex tool. And we need to change the shape of the motion so that it doesn't just move, by a straight line. It's an arc instead, like this. And we need to do the same for, for each of our letters. So let's probably drag the template a bit to the left so it's easier to work. Okay, so now E, let's just move it here. Pixel perfect, achieved. Then X, the last one is letter T. So let's again move it here. And now we need to convert vertices for each of the letters. And it's very important that you alter not this point, but you alter this point with the convert vertex tool. If you do this, a very weird effect will appear, which means that you will also change other vertices. So it will behave very strangely like this. So you just need to remember to always change this vertex. Do the same here and the same for T. Let's make the keyframes a bit smoother, closer to the standard shape, which is this. And also we need to offset them, right? By, I think, 1 or 2 frames. Now let's disable the template and let's check how it looks. I think it looks very cool. Maybe one change to all that is we just need to make the shape a bit more drastic like this. Maybe it will make it look a bit more snappy. Yeah, looks about right, but now again we need to offset the keyframes. And now I will offset them by 2 frames. And disable the template and let's have a look. Yeah, looks very, very cool. I like it very much. I think we can work with that. Let's make the animation a bit longer and let's make sure that that no words, no letters collide with each other. If they do, it just makes the animation look very dirty, so we don't need that. Now it looks super clean, nothing collide. And the last word was taste. Let me just remind myself how it was animated. So I think it was just a simple animation like this. All right, so let's go to our comp 2. Let's just clone any random text layer, make it black. And here let's type taste. Enable the template again so that we know where to put it, like this. Again, check that you don't have these red edges, so it's more or less pixel perfect. It's important because if you mess it up, it will look dirty. We don't need that. So, all right, so once this word is clear from this T, we can create a final keyframe here for the position, and here we can create another keyframe and it will slide from the bottom like this. Now just our usual shape, disabling the template, and let's have a look. As you can see, it collides, looks wrong, so we need to find the spot where the letters don't collide, and I think this frame is perfect for that. Let's have a look again. Looks perfect. And the final step, we need to animate this dot or this period, whatever you call it. So we animate again position scale. We need to see the template and we need to move it. We need to move it like this to the right. We need to keyframe for scale here. And what I like to do, I just want to play with the scale a bit, so I create keyframe for scale so that it's 165 here, and it goes back to normal again in the end. So as for the shapes, it's a bit tricky here, so the keyframe for scale should look like this. So let's have a look at our final animation of the first scene. I think it looks almost perfect. Maybe there are some things that can be changed. For example, I think this is too close. It shouldn't be like this. So we just highlight this block of keyframes and we need to think what to do with this. Actually it needs to go to the left, I think, right? Yeah. Now it's perfect, you see? It's almost in the final position when the taste word starts animating. And you see the motion is very cool, because it looks as if it becomes closer to the camera, as if it's almost 3D, because we manipulate the scale. So I think it looks very kinetic, very, very cool. So let's save our project and our first animation is done. And let's get to the next one, which is the kind of motion that. And this one is very simple. It's much more simpler. So we have animated our first 2 phrases, and now I would like to pre-compose them and fade them out. So let's just highlight all the layers. but you can exclude the template layers, which are red text, and just pre-compose all other layers like this. And now you can slice them so it looks a bit more neat, like this. Now, just to preserve the cleanliness of the project, let's also trim this one. And now let's just do a nice slow fade out, around 1 second long, like this. And now we have this phrase, the kind of motion that says blah blah blah. So in our original animation, I just excluded the word says and added it to the next shot with a b-roll of the woman speaking into the microphone so that we illustrate the word says. Alright, so let's get to work now. So what we need to do here is we need to remove the word says. So let's just duplicate this layer, hide this one, and delete the word says. Now we have our layer perfectly aligned. You see that it's in the dead center. Now what we are doing is we make it black, and we again place a reward in accordance with this template. Kind, oh shit, kind. We don't need Russian letters, of course. Need to change the keyboard off, motion. And here we do, I think, the simplest technique, which we'll have in the whole lesson. The easiest technique, right? We just animate. We don't need to animate this as well. So we deselect these two layers and we select only these layers, which will actually move. So now let's create our favorite keyframe shape. And now we will need to offset by 2 frames, I think. The kind of motion that says, and here you need to check if the words collide. So you just scroll the timeline a bit like this, and you see if the keyframe was a bit more to the left, it could look this way, and this would be incorrect. You would need to either decrease the distance here, right? So make the motion lighter, or you would need to shift the keyframe start 1 frame to the right so that it looks smoother. But here it's almost perfect. I think it looks very good. Nothing collides. It's not too close. So enable motion blur for these layers. And what I did here, the kind of motion that says, so I just included this b-roll. So we need to disable the sound, and we need to find the first frame of the girl speaking. By the way, it's in 4K. The recording is 4K, so we need to make the scale 50%. We also need to hide this brand name, so we need to enlarge it a bit. Maybe move it to the right a bit like this. Make sure it occupies the whole frame. Okay, so I think we can start here. And you can see that the appearance of this b-roll, it coincides almost perfectly with the click in the music track, so it's a good thing if it does. And now we need to create one more layer and type in says, make it white, delete the keyframes here, move it somewhere here, I guess. And now we need to animate it as well, so it slides in just a tiny bit from right to left, like this. Move it right, ease it, create the needed shape. Yeah, looks good. Maybe make the motion even lighter, because when we even enable motion blur, there will be too much motion blur, and too much motion blur isn't good. For example, look at this. So when the motion blur is too pronounced, it doesn't look clean. It just needs to be just, slight motion, something like this. Yeah. And it's a cool effect because it looks as if, this text is replaced by this word. It's when it's in motion, it looks like a cool transition. So it looks very cool. Now we need to replace this word says with yeah. I did it like this. So this yeah word, I think it made 2 separate motions. At first, it slid in to replace precisely the position of the word says, and then there was another motion so that it fits the correct position inside the sentence. So let's create one more keyframe. Let's hide the this costs money sentence for now, and let's type in yeah from the capital letter, it's important, and comma. Yeah, comma. And now let's check where the anchor point is for the says word. So it coincides perfectly now with the says anchor point. So now we just need to replace it. So let's do it this way. So I would like to start from the, how did I do it here? Says, so it continued the motion, right? So says started, see it started moving and then it replaced. Yeah, so what we can do instead, by the way, and I think it will be a more elegant solution, is this. So we can animate source text parameter. So let's do that. So here it will say says. Now we create another source text keyframe and we type in the target text like this. And now we need to move it a bit. Now we need to see where we need to move it, right? So we need to move it to the left like this. And I think the motion of the keyframes should look like this. By the way, here it also doesn't look right, so let's check. Oh, it doesn't look right, to be honest, so let's play with the keyframes maybe. Yeah, maybe we need to create this shape. Let's see if it looks better. Yeah, now I like it. So how did I animate all the other words? I just animated them simply with a slide in from the bottom. So let's duplicate this, type in this, make it white. By the way, move the says above the template so that we can see it better. And now let's move it like this. Here we type money dot quotation mark. Slide it to the left like this. And now they are all in correct positions and we just need to animate. You already know how to do that. So again, keyframe shape, the speed graph shape, and just offset by 2 frames. Disable the template and let's check how it looks all together. Disable is great. No, it doesn't look right. It doesn't look right. So you see here the gap is too low, right? This is too close, and this stays in this position for too long. Doesn't need to be like that. So maybe we need to revert to this keyframe shape back. This looks better, but maybe what we need to do is we need to move it a bit to the left. Yeah, now I think it looks better. Maybe make it longer like this. Yeah, I'm content with it now. Okay, so our next phrase is Apple style, clean, confident, premium. But we don't need this b-roll anymore. What we can do is we can just fade it with opacity like this. But in order not to create too much contrast, I would like to create a solid layer here, and I want it to be exactly this color. So we just use, I don't know how this tool is called, we just use this thing, we move it below the b-roll layer. To keep it neat, let's just trim it so that it starts precisely here, and let's check what we had in my original comp. So it was just a gradual fade, and then we just removed the black solid and we introduced this Apple style clean, then it slides up, confident, premium. All right, so here we trim this layer. So we need to make this one black. And what we'll do now is we'll delete everything except Apple style. And it's important that we align it to center like this. So then we need to check to look for the sound cues where we need to place all the other layers. So they should appear when we have these peaks, right, in the music track. So let's duplicate a layer here. So the next word clean appears on this sound cue. The next one appears on this sound cue, confident, and the premium appears probably here. And now we need to shift them as the scene progresses. So to do that, we need to change the position, but we want to move it smoothly. It will just teleport very quickly within 1 frame. So we just create 2 keyframes, one for original position and one for target position, and we just move them. Firstly, we don't move it up because it's still 1 line of text, right? So we just need to move it so that it conforms with this vertical position. We doesn't need to, I mean horizontal position, right? So this is horizontally aligned. We don't need to align it vertically like this yet, right? Just need to do this. And now we need to create 2 keyframes for these positions. And now we need to slide them up right at the moment when confident appears, so that again they don't collide, they don't coincide, it just looks clean. And by the way, I think we probably need to appear the confident, make it appear a bit later like this. And as for the keyframe shape, let's just use this shape. Confident, so premium goes to its where it needs to be here. And now you can see that the whole animation, if we play it, it looks like this. So you see, all the words appear according to the sound cues. We have a pick here, we have a click or a pick here, so everything is synchronized. So there's one more important point. So I would like to enable motion blur for this layer, right? And also for this layer, because they move up and they need to do it a bit smoothly. But there's a problem. If the motion blur is on, this 1 frame position transform is also has motion blur, and we don't need that. So to get rid of that, we just split the layer into 2 layers, and we just delete motion blur for this layer, right? And now it just jumps perfectly without any motion blur, looks very clean. All right, now we trim all the layers and we go to the next animation, and let's listen to the music and let's check where it happens. This premium word zoom in. It happens, I guess, okay, when we hear the click. And what happens? The screen shifts to black. We see the premium word, it's a bit bigger, scale is 125%, and it zooms in, hits us, and we have a transition like this. So what we need to do is we need to reintroduce this black solid layer, but firstly we need to find our click. Let's check where we have the click. So precisely here we have our click, and now we trim all the layers and we move the black layer here, and it exists up until this point, until we have the next phrase. So let's just copy the premium layer. It doesn't have any transforms, so no need to delete any keyframes. Make it white, align it to center horizontally and vertically both. Now let's change the scale. Before changing the transform, while it's at 100%, we just go to center anchor point to layer content. Now we change it 125 like this, and now we just scale it probably to 200. Let's see how it looks. And here we need this speed graph shape. Here's how it looks. So it's super slow in the beginning, boom, super fast in the end, like this, boom. And it creates a perfect transition. And also we can add some motion blur to it, so it looks a bit more smoother. You see, there's some motion blur to it. The next word or phrase is "and you," right? So I actually split it into 2 parts. The first one is just "and," we make it black, we delete "you," question mark, and you see it aligns to the center itself. What we do next is we slide in the "you" word from the right, and it happens to the sound cue, I think. Yeah, see, to this click. So "you," question mark, make it visible, make it black. Let's center the anchor point, and let's scale it 125 probably as well, or 150 even. Let's trim the end layer, let's check if it's aligned, and let's animate the position like this. So nothing new here, just our usual workflow with the keyframes. Enable motion blur. And what I did here, I cut the layer in a bunch of, sub layers, so that it's, gets bigger, creates some dynamics. And let's just replicate that effect like this. 2 frame segments. The last one is 3 frames, but that's all right. Here it goes white like this. We can create another black one like this. Here it goes white as well. And here we can make it bigger. Let's go with 225, 250 here, and 275. And let's see how it looks all together. A bit epilepsy inducing, I guess. So maybe we can remove the second black screen, replace with black text here. In my original version, it looked a bit different, I guess. It had less steps, so maybe let's try to match that. So we need to make that a bit longer. 3 frames. So $250 here, and here 300. Yeah, it looks much better now. Okay, so next phrase is you're about to learn how to make this. And what I did here is just a very simple animation technique. Basically, we need to duplicate the red layer, make it black. Again, guys, it's all the same workflow, almost always, but we need to repeat it several times so that you are confident with it when you do it yourself. And by the way, each phrase is animated a bit differently. It all has learned all the types of small techniques that can be used. So to make this, did I animate dots separately? No, I didn't. Okay, this goes here. What I need to do now is, again, I need to create keyframes on the first frame, move like 5-7 frames to the right, create another keyframe, and now I need to do actually a bunch of different things. So I want all the words to appear from different sides. So if you look attentively here, so you see that this word your goes from the left, this goes from the above, this as well goes from above, this goes from the right, left, bottom, bottom, right. So we just need to match that. So this goes from the left, this from above, this again from above, this from the right, this from the right, left, this from below, this from below, this from the right. Now we just ease all the keyframes like this. Let's normalize the graphs so that they look more, better to us. Let's just offset all the keyframes by 2 frames. That will give us the desired effect. Of course, enable motion blur for all the layers, and let's just see how it looks. Okay, so there's a lot of dead space in between of these 2 phrases, around a second, so we'll need to offset the words by 2 frames more, so it's 4 frames total in between of each word appearance, so that we don't have this dead space. It's more dynamic this way. It's very important that throughout the whole video you are animating, something is happening, so you should aim to not have any static screens at any given time. So what you can also do to achieve that effect, because even very slight motion works, you can just prolong these keyframes. I deselected them, now I need to select them again. Just shift highlight them like this and then drag them to the right. See, it even overlaps the beginning of the next phrase, but that's okay. And now we just trim everything like this. So next it says right here, and what we do is we just duplicate it twice. We delete the here word. By the way, make them both black. So hide the here at first. So let's align it to the center. It's already aligned. Now we need to move it to the position like this. Maybe here we'll have maybe this shape. I don't know, I have a feeling that this should work better for some reason. Maybe even this one. Move it here. Okay, and don't forget about the sound cues. Let's check the waveform. Here something happens in the song, so it's a very good place to introduce the new word. And I think it looks about right. I'm satisfied. Let's go to the next on motion conquest. Okay, so let's create a new template, a new target, or whatever you can call it, on motion, so that we know where to move the words on the first iteration. of the animation, the first phase, I guess. So as soon as it's in the final position, we create the word motion in black like this. Okay, we hide the second template and we show the original one. And now we need to move these two words, motion, to the left so that they end up where they need to end up. But there is also one more important thing, is that we need to animate the source text here and add these two slashes. So let's do that. Okay, so we add one here, we wait several frames and we introduce another one. And we need, I think, to move the position so that it perfectly aligns. Maybe we can move the end of the animation a bit to the left. So let's see. Motion conquest. Let's see how it looks. It looks a bit choppy. Let's check if the reason is the lack of motion blur. No, I think that's not the reason. Maybe we need to make this animation a bit quicker. Yeah. Also, this on. Let's check if these two graphs, oh shit, they look very different. That's why they have this choppy effect, because they need to move together like this. So you need to check if two elements are moving at the same time. You need to see that their speed graphs are aligned. Otherwise, it will be chaotic. So here we have another beat, or I don't know, a kick, something happens in the music. So let's just delete everything and type conquest like this. Let's see our template and let's move it in the right place. Now let's just animate it a bit so that maybe it comes from the left like this. We disable the template and we look from the beginning. Yeah, so I'm satisfied. Let's save the project. Let's go forward. So what do we have next? So I did a little show off of my logo. So let's replicate that. So let's copy the logo layer like this. Yeah, it happens right when we hear the click. The click is this peak in the music. So we also need to create a new solid. We need to adapt it to the logo's background like this. We need to move it below the logo. We need to trim it. Okay, so let's duplicate it. And here I have the invert effect to make it basically to invert the colors. Yeah. Now it looks like I want it to look. Alright, so next we have because why work the same hours and get paid less. Bam. And that's the end of the animation. That's the last sentence. Okay, so let's check what we have here. So we have the because word typed individually. Each letter is a separate layer. Y is a whole layer. Work the same hours are also have their own layers. And I have 3 dots as 3 separate layers because I animated them like this. So they slide in from the right side. Then what happens next? So this word just dissolves into a blur. Basically all the words dissolve, and then the word same, it stays, doesn't disappear, and it just jumps in place of the word less. And here we also have source text parameter animated. So it was same and then we change it to less. Right. And all the other words from the next phrase, they slide in from the left. But here I have a small mistake, probably not a mistake, but I don't know how to call that, but I don't like the effect, like I told you before, when the words collide. So we'll try to avoid that in the recreation. So let's just do our routine of creating, a layer for each of our words or letters. Okay, so here we need to just type in Y work, duplicate the same like this. Everything needs to be pixel perfect. You really need to be aware of that. And then just replace it with a dot, period, whatever you call it. I don't know how to call it correctly. To be honest, I just recently learned that it's called the period. I always called it a dot, but I guess it doesn't matter too much. So now, how did I do it? Did they slide in from... Yeah, they slided in from the bottom. So let's keep that effect. You already know, right? You already know how to do that. So we just need to highlight the because positions. Wait, what? I don't know why that happens. Because I need to work with this layer. Right, it's the template. Okay, so because... Yeah, looks cool. Okay, next word is why. Again, same old routine, nothing new, guys. I don't know what to say. Just copy what I'm doing and you'll be fine. Okay, so why work? So why slides in from the top. Enable motion blur for all the layers. There. Oh wait, first we need to animate work. Guys, I think there needs to be a script or something like this, because I always do it manually and honestly it's very tiring. So if anyone knows some kind of a script or, you know, a plugin for this exact type of animations, I would appreciate it very much if you told me the name. But for now, let's just do it by hand. We're not lazy, we're hard workers, so we don't fear that. We can, you know, make our life a bit easier and just create the final keyframes for everything at once. Make it go from bottom. And these three, they go from the right, the three dots. Right, so now just a graph, and now shift everything by 2-3 frames like this, and the dots you can shift by 1 or 2 frames. And I see that I messed up this animation, so maybe what I need to do is I need to replace the start keyframe with the end keyframe. Probably that will fix the problem. No? Okay, so let's... This is why we need our template, by the way. If we fuck up our animation, it's not aligned, I guess. Okay, so I fucked up the whole animation. What I will do for the because, I'll just highlight all the letters and I'll just change the anchor point, move it down a bit. That fixes it. For the Y animation, what I did, I need to again replace the beginning keyframe and the ending keyframe. Now the graph is also messed up, so it needs to be like this. Y work, same situation, the same hours. Okay, now it looks about right. Let's just disable the red layer and let's have a look. I think it looks a bit wrong because these letters slide in from the bottom and this one goes from above. So I think I will change the starting position of the Y so that as if it continues the motion of because. I think it will look more fluid this way. Yeah, you see, instantly it looks much better, much more, I don't know, pleasing to the eye, I guess. I can just make this distance bigger and this distance even bigger, so that there's this cool effect, you know, of the dots moving individually with different speed. So, and the final animation is because why work the same hours and get paid less. Okay, now we need to dissolve all the words and letters except the word same, because it will travel to the new position and the source text will be animated. So here we need to move all of them up like this. Now we need to go to the first keyframe, we need to press T, we need to press U, we need to go here, and we need to make it 0. Now we need to highlight all the keyframes like this, press W, and here we need to add fast box blur, create a keyframe, and 15 blur radius on the ending keyframe. Now, ease it, again, highlight all the layers except what? Except same, paste. Oh, it didn't work for some reason. Okay, let's do it again. We copy, right, copy the effect, keyframes, highlight everything except same, paste. Now it works. And we need to offset every new layer by 1 frame. So let's do it. All right, so let's check how. Looks cool, right? Yeah, looks very cool. Now we highlight this word and we need to make it travel to the next position, which is this position of the word less. P, move it here. Somewhere in the middle of the motion, we need to also animate the source text so that the word changes. Here we type less, like this. And now we again need to adjust the position so that it matches the... Oh, wait, we don't need to just positioned here, of course, we need to go to the final keyframe like this. Okay, so should look something like this. Now we use already the trick. We make the movement in this shape of an arc. And I think for this motion, the shape of the graph is almost correct. We just need to make it more snappy like this. Yeah. And all the other words, they just slide in from the left. So, and get paid. And by the way, move the template to the bottom of everything like this. Okay, and get paid. Create some keyframes here and make them move from the left hand side. Now offset by 4 frames. Now disable what? The template. And let's check how it looks all together. Great, I like how it looks. The only thing I would change is I would make the dissolve animation a bit longer, because now it's just too snappy. So we just highlight all the ending keyframes. Again, a very tedious task. I wish I could automate it somehow, but for now I just have to do it manually like this. Maybe... wait. Yeah. Now it's much more fluid, you see? Maybe also offset this a bit to the right. Yeah. Now it looks cool. Now it's perfect. Okay, now just stretch out this word which we animated, same, right? So the next transition in the music track happens here. Yeah, precisely on this peak, here or here, doesn't matter too much. So we just trim these 3 layers. We just also trim this layer. We can pre-compose all that. And now we can animate the scale a bit. The anchor point is already in the dead center, so it's the correct position. And now we just create again this transition shape of the graph. We add motion blur. And also what companies like to do when they end their videos, they just like to put their logo in the center, right? So that's what I did as well. Maybe make it smaller. They like it. Usually they like their logo small. They like a lot of negative space because it looks more professional compared to if we had it, for example, like this, right? Not even mentioning that it's low res, but you know, you just need to learn how to create something that looks professional, because what I see very often is that people just, you know, they use the wrong fonts, they use cheap effects, they use a lot of glow, they try to make it super flashy, but they lose this simplicity, this cleanliness. Their videos doesn't look smart, they doesn't look professional, they just look, you know, like a collection of every possible effect that the editor could think of, meshed together, and it just looks like garbage. So you need to learn this kind of, you know, timeless classic animations, and hopefully you can find some very high ticket clients like I did, and you can start earning more. This is the whole point of this lesson. So thanks everyone for watching this lesson. My voice is super tired of speaking, but I hope you learned at least something today. And I'm hoping to see your recreation of these exact animations. Just, you know, post it on your Twitter, tag my Twitter account, Motion Conquest. You can find it in the description of the video. And let's keep in touch. If you have any questions, just write them down in the comments. You can DM me on Twitter as well. You can ask any questions. I try to help everyone. So see you soon.